There comes a moment in life when the noise outside begins to drown the voice within a voice that once dreamed, believed, and dared. But what if I told you that in the silence we avoid lies the wisdom we seek? That the world may teach us to chase the loud applause, but life teaches us to value the quiet within. You see, we live in a time where distractions have become constant companions, and focus, that beautiful, rare stillness of the mind, has become a forgotten art. But just as a calm sea reflects the stars more clearly, a quiet mind reflects purpose more purely, and in that sacred space between chaos and clarity, there is a wisdom that whispers, not shouts, a wisdom that doesn't demand attention but transforms everything it touches. Today, I want to take you on a journey not outside but within. A journey where silence is not emptiness but a canvas, where focus is not pressure but power, and where the deepest truths about who you are not found in the noise but in the pause. When we are young, we are taught to speak, to express, to share, to shout our dreams from rooftops. But almost no one teaches us the value of being silent, of listening not just to others, but to ourselves. And in that silence, to truly focus. Focus not with tension, not with pressure, but with presence. The world today celebrates noise. The louder you are, the more you're heard. The faster you move, the more you're seen. But there is a kind of strength, an unshakable strength, that is born not from shouting louder, but from being still enough to hear what truly matters. We often confuse stillness with stagnancy, but stillness is not a lack of movement, it's a mastery of it. Think about the most focused minds in the world: artists, thinkers, creators. Before the brush touches the canvas, before the word is written, before the idea is spoken, there is always a moment of stillness. A silence, a pause, that sacred pause where everything is being aligned internally before it can manifest externally. That is where wisdom lives. It does not arrive in chaos. It waits in the quiet. It doesn't rush, it reveals. We have become addicted to being busy, not because we are always doing something meaningful, but because we are scared of what might come up in the silence. The truth is, silence holds up a mirror and focus sharpens the reflection. Focus is not merely about achieving a task. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. It's about saying no to 1,000 distractions so that you can say yes to one truth. It's the discipline of the soul. It's deciding each day what kind of person you want to become, not in the eyes of others, but in your own heart. But to focus, we must first let go. Let go of the noise that constantly demands our attention. Let go of the need to be everywhere at once. Because we cannot hear the wisdom of silence when we are running from moment to moment, always trying to catch up with a world that never stops moving. True focus begins with permission, the permission to slow down, to breathe, to be fully here without guilt. That's not laziness, that's clarity, that's courage. In silence, everything becomes clearer: your doubts, your dreams, your fears, your strengths. But it takes bravery to sit in that space, to listen to your own heart when the world is screaming what you should be. It takes strength to be still when everyone else is racing. Yet those who master that strength are the ones who lead themselves before they try to lead others. Because if you cannot hear your own truth, how can you walk in it? When you focus, truly focus, the world doesn't shrink, it expands. Your perspective sharpens. Your purpose deepens. You start to see things others overlook. You start to understand that not everything needs a response. Not every comment needs a reply. Not every noise needs your attention. Some things just need your stillness, your peace, your refusal to be disturbed by what doesn't deserve you. And silence, contrary to what many believe, is not emptiness. It is fullness, full of wisdom, clarity, healing. When we begin to honor silence, we begin to understand ourselves. And when we understand ourselves, focus becomes effortless, not forced. It becomes an act of self-respect. You begin to ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this thought worth my peace? Is this noise worth my time? And those questions lead you not to more answers, but to better ones. The most powerful people are not always the loudest. Often, they are the ones who sit quietly, who observe, who wait, who choose their battles carefully. And when they speak, people listen not because they shout, but because their words are rooted in wisdom gathered from silence. Their focus has given them vision. Their silence has given them depth. And their presence alone shifts the atmosphere, not because they are trying to impress, but because they are fully present. There is a kind of noise that doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. It's the noise of overthinking, of doubt, of fear dressed up as logic. It's the endless chatter of what ifs and am I enough that fills the spaces between our thoughts. And yet, what we often fail to realize is that these voices only grow louder when we forget to be still. When we forget to listen not to the noise, but to the quiet whisper beneath it, all the one that tells us who we are. Silence is not the absence of thought. It's the alignment of it. It's that rare, powerful state where your mind is no longer pulling you in 100 directions. You begin to feel centered not because the world is calm, but because you are. Focus doesn't always look like intensity. Sometimes it looks like grace, a soft but unbreakable decision to stay with what matters. In a world that rewards multitasking, focus becomes an act of rebellion. In a world that tells you to keep up, silence becomes a way to take back your power. There's a reason we often get our best ideas when we're not trying. When we're in the shower or walking alone, or simply sitting with a cup of tea in the early hours of the morning. In those quiet moments, something inside us unlocks. We remember the things we pushed aside. We reconnect with the parts of us we forgot. And suddenly, clarity arrives not as a shout, but as a whisper. That is the power of stillness. It clears the fog. It returns us to ourselves. We must stop glorifying the hustle that disconnects us from our own truth. We must stop mistaking movement for progress. Focus does not mean doing more. It means doing what aligns with your values, your growth, your peace. And silence is not a punishment. It is a pathway, a sacred path back to the wisdom we lose when we're always rushing. The most life-changing decisions are not made in panic. They're made in stillness. When the noise fades and you are left only with your own voice, that is when you choose who you are becoming. But in order to reach that place, we must first unlearn the belief that we are only valuable when we are visible, that we are only progressing when we are busy. There is so much strength in slowing down, in observing instead of reacting, in focusing instead of chasing. When we let silence hold us, when we let focus guide us, we become more intentional with everything, with our words, our actions, our energy, our time. And in that intention, we begin to transform. There is a beautiful discipline in learning to be quiet in a noisy room, to not respond just to be heard, to not act just to be seen. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means restraint. It means you are listening deeper, not just to others, but to the part of you that has waited patiently to be heard. That part that knows your fears, but also your fire. That part that remembers your dreams even when the world makes you forget them. Focus allows you to filter out the things that don't serve your journey. It gives you the strength to say, "This is not for me," even when it's tempting. It teaches you that not every opportunity is aligned. Not every voice deserves your energy. Not every path is yours to walk. And silence gives you the space to make those decisions not based on pressure, but on peace. You begin to learn that wisdom isn't always taught, it's remembered. It's already inside you, buried under years of noise, expectations, and self-doubt. But when you are brave enough to turn down the volume of the world and tune into your own soul, you rediscover it. You begin to see life not as a race to be won, but as a rhythm to be followed. A rhythm that gets clearer the more you focus and the quieter you become. True transformation is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It happens in the silent choices you make when no one is watching. In the moments you choose to respond with grace instead of noise. In the times you choose to stay aligned rather than get distracted. And in those moments, you begin to trust yourself in a way that doesn't need validation. You begin to lead your life from within, not from the noise around you. There is a reason why some of the most profound realizations in life happen in solitude. In the quiet moments when the world is not asking anything from you, when there are no deadlines, no expectations, no applause, just you raw, honest, and present, it is in those spaces that you begin to see what truly matters. Focus is born not from urgency, but from understanding. And silence is not the absence of life, it is the space where life reveals its deeper meaning. We often think of focus as a sharp intensity, something rigid or narrow. But real focus is not pressure, it is permission, permission to let go of distractions that pull us in 100 directions, permission to say no to things that take us away from our core. And that kind of clarity only comes when we step away from the noise and give ourselves the gift of silence. In silence, we are not shrinking, we are realigning, we are tuning into the quiet wisdom that exists underneath the surface of our daily lives. We live in a world that rewards quick answers and fast reactions. But not everything needs an instant reply. Not everything is meant to be understood in a single moment. Some things require space. They need patience. They need the kind of attention that only comes from stillness. When we choose silence, we are not being passive, we are creating room for something deeper to speak. Something that doesn't come from ego or fear, but from truth. The kind of truth that doesn't waver in the wind. There's a certain elegance in being unbothered by things that once triggered you. A strength in choosing not to engage with chaos. Focus teaches you to value your peace. Silence teaches you to protect it. And both remind you that not everything deserves a reaction. There is power in being still when everyone else is rushing. There is power in choosing presence over performance. And there is a kind of quiet dignity in walking away from what disturbs your soul. As you begin to focus more intentionally, you realize how much of your life has been spent responding to things that were never truly important. How often you've allowed other people's urgency to become your burden. How many times you've said yes just to avoid discomfort, only to carry the weight of regret later. But silence gives you space to pause before you answer. It gives you the clarity to ask, is this mine to carry? Is this aligned with who I am becoming? In focus, you reclaim your time. In silence, you reclaim yourself. You start to realize that you don't need to prove your worth through constant productivity. That you don't have to say yes to be kind. That you can be strong and still, present and private, passionate and peaceful. Focus sharpens your path. Silence deepens your steps. And together, they guide you to a place within where decisions are no longer driven by fear, but by wisdom. There is something sacred about holding your energy instead of scattering it, about choosing your priorities instead of letting the world choose them for you, about knowing your values so deeply that you no longer need validation to follow them. That's what focus builds, not just results, but resilience. And silence, in its own gentle way, nurtures the strength it takes to stay grounded in a world that is always trying to shake you. We often seek answers from outside, from people, books, success stories. But some of the most important answers are already within us. We just haven't sat still long enough to hear them. Focus gives you direction, but silence gives you access to your own intuition, to the inner knowing that gets buried under distractions. When you honor that voice, you begin to live not reactively, but intentionally, not chaotically, but consciously. And the beautiful thing about walking with focus and silence is that your presence begins to speak louder than your words. People feel your clarity. They sense your groundedness. They notice your peace not because you talk about it, but because you carry it. You become a mirror that reflects something rare in today's world. Someone who is not rushed by life, but rooted in it. Someone who is not overwhelmed by noise, but anchored in stillness. There is a certain kind of beauty that can only be seen when you stop trying to chase everything all at once. A quiet beauty that begins to unfold when you no longer feel the need to rush, impress, or prove. It's the kind of beauty that emerges from focus, from giving your full attention to one moment, one breath, one intention at a time, and it is in silence that you begin to notice it. Not because the world becomes quieter, but because you do. The external noise may still be there, but your relationship with it changes. You are no longer controlled by it. You begin to master the art of selective listening, not just with your ears, but with your heart. In a world that constantly demands more from you, choosing focus is an act of self-love. Choosing silence is an act of self-trust. It means you believe that your worth isn't tied to how much you do or how loudly you speak. It means you know that real growth doesn't always make noise, and real wisdom doesn't always ask for attention. There is a kind of calm confidence that comes when you're no longer trying to be everywhere, do everything, or please everyone. You start to feel whole even when things are unfinished. You start to feel enough even in moments of stillness. Focus doesn't mean having it all figured out. It means knowing what matters right now. It means being present enough to say, "This is where I am, and this is what I choose to give my energy to." That clarity comes not from the outside, but from deep within, from the quiet hours when you sit with your own thoughts, when you reflect without distraction, when you ask yourself what kind of life you truly want to live. Silence creates that space. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of self. It's the ground on which your truest intentions can take root. There will always be voices pulling you in different directions. Expectations, opinions, comparisons, they will knock on your door every day. But you are not required to answer all of them. You are not required to exhaust yourself proving your path to those who cannot see your vision. Focus teaches you that your journey does not need to be loud to be meaningful. Silence reminds you that growth often happens in private, not in performance. You do not need to explain your peace. You only need to protect it. We often look for guidance in complicated answers, forgetting that the deepest truths are often the simplest. The truth that not everything needs your attention. The truth that rest is not laziness. The truth that boundaries are not selfish. The truth that it is okay, even necessary, to disconnect from the world, so you can reconnect with yourself. Focus isn't just about pushing forward, it's about knowing when to pause. And silence isn't about stepping back, it's about stepping inward, to the place where clarity is born, where strength is renewed, and where direction becomes unmistakably clear. There's something profoundly powerful about walking through life with focus in your eyes and silence in your soul. You begin to see things that once overwhelmed you with a softer gaze. You respond with grace instead of reaction. You create from a space of purpose, not pressure. You live more gently, but not with less strength. You move slower, but with greater intention, and the world begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a canvas, one that you get to paint, moment by moment, with colors of your choosing. When you learn to focus deeply, you realize how much of your life you were giving away without even noticing. To habits that didn't serve you, to people who drained you, to thoughts that didn't reflect who you truly were. And when you reclaim that attention, you begin to rebuild your life around what genuinely fulfills you. Silence supports that process. It allows the clutter to fall away. It teaches you to listen not just with your ears, but with your spirit. And what you hear in those moments is often exactly what you needed, but never made space for. You don't need to fight to be heard when your presence already speaks for you. You don't need to shout when your stillness carries its own weight. Focus gives you power. Silence gives you depth. Together, they give you presence, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be felt, the kind that doesn't ask for attention but commands respect, the kind that makes you unshakable, not because life becomes easier, but because you've become anchored. So as you walk forward from this moment, I invite you to carry with you a new understanding that your greatest breakthroughs may not come from the noise of the world, but from the silence within you. That focus is not about doing more, but about doing what matters. That silence is not emptiness, but a sacred space where truth speaks, where clarity returns, where peace is found. You don't need to rush to find your purpose. You don't need to shout to prove your worth. Everything you're searching for, direction, strength, healing, vision, already lives inside you. But to find it, you must be willing to pause. You must be willing to listen. And you must be willing to trust that your journey, however quiet it may seem right now, is building something profound. Let your focus become your freedom. Let your silence become your strength. And let your presence grounded, clear, unwavering become your most powerful voice. Because sometimes the most powerful transformation doesn't come when the world hears you. It comes when you finally hear yourself.